Hello, how's everybody doing today? Or tonight as it is, or depending on where you are, I guess, or maybe it's today, where our guests are. But I'm gonna bring them in very quickly here. We have some special guests on today, and they want to tell their story. Joel Soper, author of the powerful and painful new gambling memoir, Never Enough Zeros, as well as Dan Field. Uh, and Dan, you're at USC, correct?
Yeah. I teach at USC in the School of Social Work.
That's awesome. Okay, and welcome, Joel. Thank you for coming on tonight. And we're gonna talk about this tonight, and then it'll be out on the website tomorrow with the story about it, and basically just gonna spend some time talking about your story and all the different things that go along with it. So but welcome. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
Definitely. It's interesting, for me, I'm on, one side of it. I'm a journalist. I've been a journalist for a while, and I've basically, since gambling has been legal in New Jersey, which I think was June 14th, 2018. I remember we were on the golf course. I cover high school golf, and one of the coaches was going crazy. I said, I thought maybe somebody got a hole in one, and they're like, no, gambling is legal now. And it was just this thing. And I do the ESPN show and I do everything. So I'm on the one side of it. And then, you kind of, you see, what goes on. And I put some bets in, and I've also, when I was I went to Columbia University. So, I didn't have a lot of money when I was up there and putting bets in when I was 18, 19 years old. I don't have any money. And I'm like, man, I got, $10 to get through the next couple of weeks. So like, you see both sides of it. I mean, what has been your experience, with this? Obviously, it's, I know you've had some rough times and coming back from that. What's been your experience with this?
For me, it started at an early age. When I was 16, I started working for a bookmaker in Detroit. And back then, you used to have to actually call in to place your bets.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you would write down the bet, and there was only two options. There was the line and the total. That was it. And, I got hooked pretty quick, just working for him and seeing all the money that he was making. And he gave me some advice, like how the wise guys bet. And I just thought, okay, based on this advice, I'm going to be, a zillionaire for the rest of my life if I just bet the way he tells me to bet. So, and like yourself, you started out with $10 and I ended up betting $25, my first bet on a sports bet. And then, I had a horse racing bet that I made as well, that one that, got me really hooked. But it is definitely a gradual increase as you continue to gamble. And, starting with that $25, one bet a day, and fast forward to, up until about 6 months ago when I quit, I'm betting, tens of thousands of dollars a day and betting like 50 games a day. So it's definitely a progressive illness.
It's interesting. I remember the first bet I placed was on the 1990. His first year at Columbia is 92. The 1992 National League Championship Series Game 7. I remember 100%. And I bet the Pirates, and they were winning 2-1, and then Sid Bream came around and scored. They won 3-2. The Braves went to the World Series, and I lost. I lost like $50, 55, because you lose the $5 on the VIG. And then after that, I'm like, man, I got to make my money back. Like, I don't even know what would have happened if I would have won. I mean, probably the same thing because I have that personality. But like, I'm just like, man, if I won that game, maybe I would have just put the $50 in my pocket and said I'm done. But it's just interesting how all that stuff works. And like, and one of my friends, the kid who was my intern, he when betting was legal in New Jersey, I mean, I think he would put stuff on his credit card, so it ended up being down like $30,000, and it was whatever it was in the bets, but he was using his credit card to do it. So now it's not $20,000 because you're paying the interest. Now it's thing, and it's just like you see, and he's like he excluded himself from all the lists, and within 2 months he was back betting, and everybody's trying to tell him like, you know, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? But it's just like, what do you like to someone like that? It's just like, what do you have to go through? Do you think to before you kind of say, I've had enough and I can't do this anymore?
Well, I think personally, if you are an extreme case like myself, and I know people aren't probably going to want to hear this, but I think you got to hit some major rock bottoms,
Yeah.
because when you've been doing it for a while and that's all you knew, and it gives you that, that rush, and just all the things that come along with sports gambling that I did for close to 40 years, you're not going to stop. It's even though it's probably going to end bad, um, you're going to have to catch beatings from bookies, or you know do criminal activity once all the money's gone, to stay in action. And the only way I think they can is with someone like Dan, and taking the steps, whether it's Gamblers Anonymous or family members, and getting your therapist in line. At least that's the way that I look at it for the extreme gamblers. Dan will probably, be able to give you a little bit more insight on more of the, I guess, recreational gamblers that maybe get a little bit more like compulsive gamblers.
It was interesting, Dan. I mean, just to go back to this story, when this, the kid that worked for me, he's not a kid. I mean, he's 30 years old. I just call him a kid, but,
Right.
you know, he had this issue, but he lived it. He lives with his parents, so like they were always like, So now same thing. Like he gets jammed up, and he worked. He had a really good job, and he got fired. He had this thing, and he just like he always has this like safety net, and I've seen it before with like with my one of my family members has been a drug addict for a long time, and like there was just always this safety net, and then finally when they took away the net and they said, listen, we can't help you anymore. It took a little bit, rock bottom, and now she's back on the way up. Is that something you kind of see? I mean, with addictive personalities, I guess, right?
Well, it's hard because families love their children and they want the best for them. And it
Yep.
seems like when they're in a dire situation, that the best that they can do is to give them a leg up, give them a room to stay, and maybe pay off some books or pay some bills, and protect their child from the consequence of what their gambling has done. But that impulse, though, I totally understand it, because you don't want your kid to experience pain, isn't always helpful. It shields them from the necessary bottom, as Joel says, of what gambling's done. If you gamble money you don't have, if you have no money, if you're in debt, and that's a direct result of gambling, yet you're living in a nice house and driving a car and having food provided for you, your brain isn't going to learn the lesson. So, I hate that people have to look at destitution and poverty, and maybe it's in Joel's case, jail, mandated treatment, all of that kind of stuff. But without that wake up call, I mean, we're human. We're just going to go back to the addictive behavior, and that's what happens a lot.
Yeah. I mean, there's been some. I've seen so much of it. I mean, it's just sometimes, it takes a major event or something like that. I mean, I had a friend that was same thing. He went to jail, or he didn't even go to jail. He got thrown in jail one night for something. Like they arrested him, and he pleaded out or and all this stuff. But like he's just like, I can't do this anymore. Like I can't do this anymore. And it's just like from that point on, he turned it around, and you can do it. But like, yeah, I mean, in rock bottom, and I know some Joel, like some of the stuff that you've talked, the live betting. I mean, I know right now this live betting is, first of all, I mean, I travel. I'm a Manchester United shirt. I'm a big soccer guy. I go over to Europe a lot and watch my team play and stuff. And they actually have like bookmakers that you walk into. But here, I mean,
Yeah,
it's on your phone. I mean, you don't even have to leave your house. And like, it's just, I mean, it's pretty scary when you think about it. And now like 75% of the bets now are live betting. So it's almost like I see sometimes with the lottery that Keno game, it's every 3 minutes, and you just see people sitting at the lottery place. Oh, Keno, I'm gonna win this time. I'm gonna hit 20 numbers, and it's just like hours pass and stuff. I mean, how have you seen that? I know with the live betting, the prevalence. I mean, is that kind of basically been almost like a disaster for some people?
absolutely. I mean, listen, I knew right away once that came out. I forget the exact year that it came out, but it was a while back. And I couldn't even bet regular bets anymore. I mean, it was like crack cocaine. I was done. And that really led to my demise because, when you bet 50 games a day, which I was pretty much doing that every day for, up until I quit the last 6 years, every day, at least 50 games, 50 plays. Um,
50 plays or 50 games? 50 plays and
50
a
plays.
dozen games, right?
Right, 'cause there could be 10 plays in one game, 20 plays in one game. I mean, there's probably days I had 70, 80 plays a day. And because let's think about it logically, right? Do you want to wait 3 hours to see if you won or lost on one game,
No.
or do you wait 5 minutes? You want to bet the one inning. Do you want to bet, there's 2 minutes left in a quarter? Just bet that 2 minutes. I mean,
tennis
it's
tennis you can bet on every single point of every single game of every single set of every single match. It's absolutely crazy sometimes how you can bet every 30 seconds you could put a bet in.
right. And that's how it was with me. And like I said, I knew as soon as they came out, I was done. I actually was gonna when I was trying to start a dynamic live, wagering platform myself because I knew that it was just going to be a very did me in.
I mean, and Dan, obviously, I mean, is that something that you've seen kind of an increase in some of the people that have had some issues here since this? I mean,
Yeah, pretty much all my younger sports bettors that have come in the last couple of years are doing live betting. It's just kind of an assumption that they're betting in game. Um, you know, I don't go into details about like is live betting okay versus just the money line or just betting on the game. I just try to look at it in the aggregate. How much time have you been spending? Researching games and betting on games, and how much money have you lost? But the potential for quick release dopamine is so much more with live betting now. And I think, like Joel says, that it is like the crack cocaine of sports betting. Um,
it's interesting too because one of the once again like I work for I do this stuff and we talk about games and we give out picks and I they ask me all the time hey how much are you betting on this game 100 $200 I mean I'm pretty honest. I'm like, listen, I don't really bet. Like I do, like every once in a while I put a bet in, like just I don't know if I really think so. But I'm really like I'm too like I like my money. I work I work crazy hours. I do all this. I got like 10 jobs. I'm a tutor. I do this. I write for Fringe.com. I've a bunch of stuff. So, but like they asked me, but there's a lot of people out there giving these picks away that are just like in it for, they don't even know what they're doing, and like you just kind of get to the point where you're just like you're so, I feel like people are so desperate that you're just like, I'm gonna try this guy, and it's just, you don't even know if he's. I'm gonna try this guy. Hey, I was 3-2, or I was 5-0 yesterday, and it's like you just. It's crazy. I mean, does that kind of go along with it? Were you like calling these guys and doing all that stuff as well, trying to find an edge?
Well, I guess I was different because I ended up being one of those guys. And they're 99% of them are all frauds. Okay,
100.
let's just
I would say
let's
99.99, but yeah, that's probably closer.
let's just call a spade a spade. Okay, you got a better chance having some monkey, just pick games than go into a tout.
Throw darts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. I mean, they're just salesmen because that's what I do. I'm a salesman, and that's what I have done my whole life. And when you have the verbal skills that pay the bills, you could apply that to anything, you know. And if these guys were such good bettors, well, they would be betting them themselves. They wouldn't have to sell their picks. So, to answer your question, no, I never went to that, extreme because I was like, I knew in my head that they were all frauds because I learned at an early age from the bookie that I worked for. He's like, yeah, these guys flip a coin or they have 50 people call in. They'll give
25 this way,
25
25
Cowboys,
this way.
25 the Lions, and then the next game, they split it in half again. So at least you got like six people that think you could walk on water. So
Right.
it's all a sham. And yeah, I mean, I definitely did desperate things when I lost my money because I wanted to stay in action. But I can see, especially in today's day and age, how these kids are going to get sucked in. I mean, these guys are very good at marketing. This guy, Vegas Dave, I don't know if you've heard of him, but I knew him when I was in Vegas. I had a service called Joel the Jew Sports Consulting because I was Jewish, and I just wanted something catchy like Jimmy the Greek back in the day, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so I got to know a couple of these clowns, which they were clowns, and it's all a farce.
I mean, it's just I mean, it's just thinking about it, it's just so um crazy. But like I mean, when you start to get desperate, I guess this for Dan. I mean, when you start to get desperate, what is that? What's that mentality like when you like, or when you hear these stories about people, starting to get desperate? I mean, it just, I guess.
Well, I usually get to them after the desperation has hit a brick wall of reality. And my job is to sit with the fact that they've lost money, it's not coming back through gambling, and that we have to rebuild together a life in which you're not gambling, desperately clinging to this idea that you can undo the damage done by gambling through gambling. And so it's a slog, and that's what people don't understand. It takes months. It takes a good amount of effort to overcome this doldrums that gambling causes. You've rewired your brain to want instant gratification. You've created this fantasy that somehow you can have a life that is so exciting with yachts and girls and money and philanthropy, giving out I'm going to be Mr. Daddy Warbucks and all my friends are going to love me. You create a fantasy, and then the reality is you don't have money, you have an addiction, and you have a real problem because you have this compulsion to keep gambling. So I really have to sit with loss. I have to sit with, despair, maybe too strong a word, but with negativity, because the reality is really difficult. But there is, forgive the cliche, a light at the end of the tunnel. You can overcome this addiction. It can just hook you so quickly, and it's really hard to get out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people sometimes, I mean, and I've seen this with alcoholics, drug addicts, whatever it is. I mean, you just get to the point where just like, it doesn't matter. Like I'm so far into it. What's the difference if I keep betting or if I keep doing it? If something happens to me, if I die or if I go, whatever it is, it's going to be better than what I'm in now. I mean,
And the interesting part with gambling addiction is like 3 months in, where you've saved, let's say, maybe $5,000 or $10,000. That can feel very insignificant, but you have the trap of just thinking about building your financial life when really it's an addiction that you're addressing. So if you save 5,000 and you have 90 days of not gambling and you're really sincerely working on this issue, then that's a really big deal. But gamblers sometimes think just in terms of dollars and cents, and it's hard to get away from the spreadsheet, and just look at healing your brain, you know.
And that
The
it's not
hope.
it's not a process that takes a week or it takes a month. I mean, it's something you're working on for the rest of your life, right?
It is. And the thing that's so scary with live betting and the sort of normalization of sports betting activity is that you're often, a young person's in a surrounding where their friends in a fraternity or in college are just betting all the time. And you can pick up an addictive compulsion to gamble quite quickly. And it can be very destructive quite quickly. And it's a tough climb out of it. So you can do some really serious damage in one football season, and it may take years to get out of it. And families are aghast at the money lost and often the lying and the criminal or the bad behavior with credit cards and with family money as well. And it hurts if someone lies to you, if someone takes money from you and they use it to gamble. You judge them, you judge their gambling, and you may feel extremely resentful that they lied and took money from you. So that's all part of this package called healing from gambling addiction.
Yeah. And Joel, just like what was it like the first week, the first month? I mean, just to go through that and just like, I mean, you're just doing it for so long. I mean, what was it like to just put the phone down and say, I'm not doing this anymore, and just the milestones and all that stuff to getting to this day and this, I got through a day, I got through a week, got through a month, whatever it was.
So, my journey was unique, because I went through the whole gamut, jail, hospitals, getting beat up, and, almost committing suicide when I got out of jail because I owed hundreds of thousands on the street to bookies and, was facing, a long-term jail sentence for stealing. Um, what happened to me was I have so many games each day and I get all these bad beats, like ridiculous stuff that you can't even imagine. You could lose a game. Like, for example, I had this basketball game the day that I quit that it was an over under, and I had a large bet on it. And the team that I had the ball, they were up by 30, and 99% of the time when there's under 24 seconds left on the clock, they're just going to dribble the ball out and time's going to expire because they're already winning by a significant amount. They don't have to. Well, this guy ends up shooting a meaningless three-pointer with like 1 second left for whatever reason, makes the game go over. I lost my stuff. I lost it. Broke my phone, broke my laptop, and it's probably like the seventh or eighth time I broke my phone and my laptop. This particular time, I almost broke my hand because I hit the wall. I was just so upset. So I had no laptop, I had no phone. So I just started writing and writing from day one of my gambling to that particular day. And I didn't leave my place for 2 days. And I just kept writing and writing and writing. And that book has been, a lifesaver for me. And now I'm using it to not only help myself, but if I can help other people, then that would be amazing. So that's where I got to, as far as the abstinence. Now, has it been hard? Yes, man, it's so hard every day. I mean, I love gambling. That's what I did for so long there. To me, it was better than, you know, candy, sex, anything. But I also know where it takes me. So I just, realize that I need these interviews with you. I need to, talk to people and just keep doing what I'm doing so, I can go ahead and keep abstaining. But yeah, it was very difficult and is still very difficult.
And just to, by the way, we have the links that running at the bottom, and then the links right here for the Facebook page, the SoundCloud, and then the website and the YouTube for Never Enough Zeros. And they'll be in the description in the YouTube link if you want to copy and paste that. If anybody wants to go and read more about this, or what is the book? What is it about?
Well, the book Never Enough Zeros is a book that anybody that has gambled or that has been involved with anybody that gambles or addiction for that matter, it goes through my life from the first bet that I wrote down to just when I ended, which was 6 months ago. And I mean, it's got stories upon stories. And when you read it, you're going to be like, wow, that happened to me. And wow, that was a really crazy thing that happened to him because I was so extreme. And it gives you a really good sense of hope. And the moral of the story is that if I can change what I've been through and the addiction I had with the sports gambling, that you can change too. It really will hit home because I've had a lot of people that have read it, and they laughed, they cried, they understood every gamut of the book, and they're like, man, this is amazing. I'm going to give it to my friend that's in the midst of gambling. Then I'm going to give it to another friend that's thinking about gambling because it's so legal right now. So the book goes through some amazing trials and tribulations of my life that have been all bad because of gambling. I'm 51 years old now, and not only has it affected me financially, which obviously is the most obvious one, but physically, emotionally, mentally, everything. And I go over all that in the book, what it does just besides the financial strains that it puts on you. And I think that if you read it, you will walk away from this book really with a sense of hope and a sense of purpose.
I think that kind of the little bit of the scary thing right now is, there's only half the country doesn't even have legal online betting, and the half of the country that includes is California, which is 46 million people, Texas, which is like 35 million people. It's like probably most of the population. I know California has the law, or it has the vote in November to pass, and if that sounds like it's going to pass, and that's it's just scary because there's this amount of people that have issues, and you're throwing 120, well, you're probably throwing 50 million people and all these sports people that are sports bettors that are coming into it, um and that you have to go through this like the first time again. I mean, it's like it's kind of like I would think like reliving a nightmare. Like you keep seeing this stuff. I would think, right? I mean, do you have something you could say to anybody that's thinking about, hey, I can't even wait to bet. I'm just like chomping at the bit, just like, just to say, what they should do, or how to be careful or something like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, California's got the vote coming in November, and I think that would be like the holy grail for the sports betting.
Yeah.
In because, like you mentioned, there's so many people and there's so much money out here, and definitely will devastate a lot of people's lives. So I would say, to answer your question, to first of all, read my book. That. And that's not just to sell the book. It's just a cautionary tale of what your life could look like if you go down that slippery slope of placing your first bet. And you talked about it earlier. It's like, God forbid they win their first bet, they win $500 or whatever. Now they're hooked. And, it just becomes a constant daily activity that they're going to be in action betting. So my direct quote to the people would be very, very careful before you decide to bet. I'm not telling you not to bet, okay? Because some people can do it recreationally. But if you have that type of personality that's addictive, and when something feels good and you win, you want to keep doing it and doing it, then you really need to, read my book or read stuff on the gambling disorder, especially sports gambling, because that was 99% of what I did was sports gambling, because we feel as sports gamblers that we're smarter than casino gamblers. We feel like the odds are so against you in the casino, where the sports gambling, first of all, it's 50-50, but when we do our research, we can go ahead and get the results that we want. But the bottom line is, the bookmakers or the lines makers, they know what they're doing. They have the VIG, which is the juice. They have the advantages, and they're so technically advanced that they can figure out, based on each player, how to adjust the lines accordingly. And, before you know it, you're down the slippery slope. And it does start with that first betting a regular game. Then it gets to live. Then it gets to your whole day is just consumed. You'll end up not having any relationships like me. I'm 51, no kids, no wife, no nothing. You'll burn a lot of bridges, because what happens is, after you lose enough money, eventually you lose your job because you're not focused. And then what happens is you start stealing. Who's the first line of offense? The family and friends is who you go after first, because those are the people that you can manipulate the easiest. After that, they get sick and tired of it, and then that leads to the criminal activity, and then who knows what happens from there. So if you can listen to my words, then I feel that hopefully that can at least give you a little bit of what could happen if you go down this road.
One of our guys that listens, Bill McDonald, has a question. He's on the show a lot. Does the urge ever go away for you now, or is it just is a constant battle? You're fighting it, every day.
It's definitely a constant battle. I mean, I'd love to say that I don't think about it, but I do, and that's why I'm constantly trying to reach out to people like yourself and other shows to talk about what it's done to me, because every time I talk about it, it's like, God, it really screwed up my life so bad that it keeps me, at least for that day, not wanting to do it. But, it's hard. I mean, really, I put a lot of things in place to help myself, as far as not watching sports right now. And I love sports, so that's very difficult. And just trying to stay active.
And I mean, I know Dan, like, you just work with so many people around this. I mean, it's a constant battle, correct? I mean, it's something you have to. It's a lifelong thing from this point on, right?
Yeah, and early in your recovery, if you can begin to play the tape between the urge to gamble and the consequences of gambling, i.e., that you're losing money and you're tired and depleted and not working well, not dealing well with your relationships. Playing the tape is a classic technique that people use in therapy all the time, but you have to strengthen that association between the desire to place a bet and the negative consequences of it. And so those first sessions, I really emphasize the negative consequences of gambling. And the urge will never fully go away, but over time and living a life in which you're contributing to your family, to the community, going back into school, building a bank account, nurturing relationships, it begins to diminish in importance. So I've had people that I've worked with that haven't placed a bet in 3, 4, or more years. And they all will tell me, yes, it kind of comes up from time to time like a blip, the thought, but the thought is not an urge. So I've actually seen people for whom the urge has largely gone away over time and work.
Bill has a follow-up question. I think, he said, how about putting aside whatever an X amount of dollars per month? Is that possible for people with an addictive personality? I would probably say if you're addictive, I don't know. I'll defer to you, but like, it's tough if you're addictive. I mean, I think you're always going to be dipping into that or whatever. And it's just,
it kind of plants the seed and the positive expectancy, the anticipation that, ooh, I'm going to, bet on the 20th. And that's part of the addiction too. But no therapist or nobody is going to tell you what you can or can't do. You have to make your own choices. And maybe for you individually, yes, putting aside some money to bet is something that you're comfortable with. But you have to be honest. Are you breaking your own rules? Are you doing it once a month and then it turns into 2 or 4 times a month? Are you preoccupied with that gamble that you're going to do? It's not just money; it's time and preoccupation. So that's what I would tell Bill.
And what, Joe? Like since you've obviously said you like sports, I mean, what do you do now with your time to basically keep your mind off that or everything? I mean, is there something that you try to do now to get that, to kind of keep it off your mind, if per se?
Yeah, I own a business here in Los Angeles, so fortunately, it's a pretty popular business. So that gives me real business. And then, like I said, I just try to, do things that are constantly keeping me busy. So whether it's exercising now, which, I was very overweight when I was gambling because, fast food, drinking a lot of sodas, you name it. I was doing it because I didn't have time to, have like a regular meal. So, and then I believe it or not, I listen to, my book. I mean, it's on Spotify. So I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about gambling. I'm gonna go to Spotify. I'm gonna listen to me talk, and just listen to the book because that really helps me a lot.
And Dan, is that like, I mean, it's something where, they have to, I don't know if replace is the right word, or do they have to find something constructive to do in that time to keep their brain occupied so they're not thinking about that? Or what's the thought process behind that?
Yeah, that generally you do want to replace the old, the time, that you spent gambling with something that's constructive or fun or a hobby, whatever that may be. But the truth is, you're not going to substitute going bowling for gambling or going to a movie for gambling. It's not going to be easy. There are going to be times where you're restless, irritable, angry at yourself, and just chomping at the bit to get back into action because it's so uncomfortable. You've been doing something for so long, and now all of a sudden you're not doing it, and your brain is craving it. So, yeah, it's important to start getting into some physical activity, not just when you're craving gambling, but just on a day-to-day basis, starting to do something healthy, in a way. But the reality is that, like Joel's saying, this is something that he's dedicated hundreds of thousands of hours to in his lifetime. And to just stop, it's just going to feel very weird. And that's where, therapy is helpful. I don't have all the answers, but I can help process all of the strange, irritable feelings that you're having as a result of staying away from the gambling activity.
I mean, it rewires your brain, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the addictive stuff rewires your brain, and I think you have to try to kind of get figure out how to untangle whatever it is, untangle it, or maybe use that in a creative way. And it's something because I feel sometimes like, you're doing all this stuff. I mean, a lot of people say, if you could do it for good or do it for evil, whatever it is, you have this creative mind to be able to kind of find an edge, whatever it is. And then, if you can maybe turn that into a business opportunity or turn that into something. Yeah, Bill is saying, it's a dopamine release. So you have to maybe, find something constructive to maybe find that, I guess, at that point, right?
Yeah, and there's something about the gambler's personality that is not afraid to take risk. It's just channeling that into a healthy risk. Like, Joel has started and has maintained a very successful business over these years, even while he was gambling. And now, surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly, he still has the business because of his personality and his willingness to take risk. So you want to extract the things of your gambling addictive personality, if you will, into something that's constructive and not destructive, basically. You know,
And I
and
can
I'm thrilled that Joel has a successful business that he has not lost and he's not gambling anymore.
and I can just kind of piggyback on that, Dan, and thank you very much, because you have been such a inspiration and such a help in my journey. But the gambling, right? You need a lot of money and you need it quick if you want to stay in action. So that actually helped me become a great salesperson, because when I would make my sales, I would do it quickly and efficiently. I wouldn't give people time to think to back out of it. So as soon as they called me for an estimate, I had someone out there literally within, you know, 45 minutes to give them the estimate. We'd get the estimate, we'd get the sale right then and there. We'd start the work right then and there. And usually by the end of the day, I had all the money in my hand. Now, if I'm not gambling, I'm not as aggressive and I'm not creating that sense of urgency. I mean, I had over 10,000 customers in San Diego just for a lawn aeration company, just poking holes in the lawn. We were doing 50 homes a day. There's no way, if I wasn't addicted to gambling, that I would be that successful in my business. So now, obviously that I'm not gambling, I still have, the same knowledge and experience that I did. So my sales are still, very, very good. But, it's some of the things that the gambling actually did help me create to, learn how to generate so much revenue every day. So that was, I guess you could say, a good part that I did take from the gambling.
Just quickly, where I know we put this stuff up here, Facebook and SoundCloud. It's all over the place. You can find the book on the website and Amazon. Probably Amazon has everything at this point.
Yeah.
SoundCloud. It's all over the place. I mean, where can people find all this? Find this book if they want to listen to it or read it.
I recommend, Spotify. I recommend just Kindle, Amazon. Like you said, it's everywhere. But if you don't like to have something in your hand and read, then just jump on Spotify and go to Never Enough Zeros.
And Dan, just if I know Bill's asking a lot because there's somebody out there that's struggling with this. What can they do? What can they do to just kind of turn it around here and maybe make that change and get moving in the right direction?
Well, you can reach out to me, and I have a program called Stop Betting Sports. It's a month-long program where we develop a comprehensive treatment plan. I work with a sports bettor who has not placed a bet for 5 years. He's a social worker like myself, and the two of us work closely with sports bettors and their families to really address the issue in a family and an individual way. And that program's available for California residents. There's also the 1-800-GAMBLER line that for California residents, you can get low cost or no cost therapy, including residential treatment in the state of California through 1-800-GAMBLER. But yeah, I'm a good consultant. I've been working in the field for 10 years. And Joel and I are working together to raise awareness and train other therapists in treating problem gambling, specifically sports betting. But yeah, a good place to start is my website, stopbettingsports.com.
Okay, and we'll have all these in the show box in case anybody wants to, with the story that'll go up with it as well. So, yeah, we definitely. I appreciate you coming on and kind of talking about this, and I'll make sure I refer anybody that asks about it to you, and then try to get you. I try to get you on as many shows as I can to so people can hear this, because I think part of part of being responsible about this thing that we do is you got to kind of show both sides, and you can't just show one side of stuff. I mean, everybody has. I've always believed that you got to give everybody all sides of the argument, and let them, figure it out. You can't just always be one-sided about this stuff. I think that's a problem with a lot of things in America and the world right now. And you have to just be able to get information out there. And if somebody needs help, or if whatever it is, I mean, they can get it. So I really appreciate you both coming on tonight, and thanks for stopping by.
Thank you
Thanks
for
a lot
having
for having us.
All right, that's the show for tonight, and make sure you can check this. It'll be tweet this out on I'll put this out on Twitter and YouTube, and go buy the book, go listen to the SoundCloud, and if you need help, please go to Dan's website and make sure you're getting your help. Thank you very much for coming on, and we will see you tomorrow.